Zero is coming to Vanguard, and I'm not talking about the mobile game. I'm talking about more Dimension Police reveals for Clan Collection, but on top of that, we also got Kakkai's Reverse to shake things up a little bit. But if anything can tell us from the previous Reverse units, there is a particular trend going on here, which is a bit worrisome. But let's first talk about these reveals. Hey Cardfighters, welcome back to another Cardfight update, and today we once again start churning up these Clan Collection reveals as we got more Clan Collection. As from the intro you already know, we got Dimension Police as well as Granblue. So without any further ado, let's jump straight into these cards and see what we've got today for Clan Collection Volume 3 and Volume 4. And we're gonna start off with the ones for Dimension Police, which actually look pretty interesting and to some extent might be nice staple cards for Dimension Police in a generic sense. So first off, we've got Discrete 1, which is Eternity Chaser, which has the effect: when this unit is rode upon, cost, discard a card from your hand, choose up to one grade 3 normal unit from your hand and review it. If you revealed a card, search your deck for up to one grade 3 with a different card name from the revealed card, reveal it, and put it into your hand and shuffle your deck. So this is basically another way to get a grade 3 searcher in your deck that is basically more consistency to your grade 3 game plan. This honestly a very nice right target for Dimension Police, in together with the one that we got last time with Kaiser, as now you can secure the grade 3 right target 100% of the time the moment you can write this, which is amazing. And that means you have consistent access to Die Liner for premium players and maybe even for standard to some extent. But this could also help you to basically fetch your Hue Guardians, which are also great frees. So overall, this is a very solid consistency skill that I definitely can see being run in a whole plethora of Dimension Police decks. But then it also has another effect, which is auto and back row rearguard circle. When your opponent's rearguard attacks, if that unit's power is 25k or less, cost Soul Blast 1 and retire this unit. Choose one of your units and it cannot be hit until the end of battle. Look at the power including boost and opponent's card abilities. So this is yet another reason why I think this can be a generic staple for Dimension Police in general, because either you write it or call to the rearguard circle. It has a solid skill nonetheless. This is effectively another perfect guard built into the card, so you can have your normal perfect guards and now this card as well. And if we're gonna go look at premium with Geoglamis with Die Liner included, that basically means you have probably the most tankiest deck in the format, because honestly the 25k or less power isn't unrealistic to think about on a rearguard attack, as there's a lot of instances, especially in V Premium, where rearguards will hit for 15, 23, and that is usually the range. They can go higher, of course, but those are like the big beater decks. But usually the decks that have small pokes and whatnot, this is a nice way to basically get another defensive on the field. So honestly, not a bad card in general. I can definitely see it being played all across the board. But then if we move up to the grade 2 for the new support wave, we've got Endless Float. And Endless Float has the effect, although when this unit is rode upon, choose one of your vanguards and it gets power plus 10k until the end of turn. Then cost, discard a card from your hand and call this card to the rearguard circle. So effectively it's another power bomb to your vanguard, so that can help with any Dimension Police archetype that relies on having a certain threshold of power, which is nice. But then it also can flood itself onto the board, so you can call it from the soul by discarding a card. So for Soul Blast 1, discarding a card, you get this particular grade 2 on the field. Now you might ask yourself, what's the point of getting this card to the field? Well, it all has to do with its second effect, which is auto rearguard circle. When this unit attacks, if your grade 3 unit was placed this turn, this unit gets power plus 5k until the end of battle. Then, at the end of the battle, cost, retire this unit and draw a card. So effectively, you get a 15k beater onto the field the moment you can call it out with skill, because that's also the turn that you place a grade 3 on the field. But on top of that, it allows you to get a cycle on the board because it retires itself for a draw. Now, that doesn't sound all too crazy, especially since you just paid a Soul Blast and a discard to get it onto the field from your soul. But in certain matchups, this is actually ideal because you can clear the board if you're up against Kagura or whatnot, or any other retire focus centric deck. Then this is a great way to still generate value while at least getting more attacks on the board. Now, it also could synergize with any particular card that can call itself during the battle phase. I don't think Dimension Police has access to those, but maybe it does in Premium to some extent, but I don't think. But if that is the case, this card then also allows you to open up the circle, thus negating the minus you would have if you place the card on top of it during the battle phase. So there are options here. I don't think this card is crazy good, but I think it's a generic solid card that can potentially be played. But I think a lot of the good cards in Dimension Police already are residing in the grade 2s, so it would be a tough call to see if you're gonna play this or not. Now, moving on to their new boss unit, we've got Original Saver Vanguard 0. Now, of course, it's just 0, but this 0 is honestly looking pretty spicy, because we've got the following abilities, which is when this unit attacks from the Vanguard circle or is rode upon, so that basically means, so that is somewhat of what we saw in the first initial wave with something like Epic Buster. Cost Counterblast 1 and Soulblast 1, draw a card, choose one of your opponent's units, and increase or decrease its power to 0 until the end of turn. Power becomes 0 at that time. So this basically makes your opponent's Vanguard 0. Now, the interesting thing is, and I didn't really emphasize on when I showed you the card, his base power is also 0. So that's kind of weird, but it also because this card is all with 0 number in its name and in its effects. Turning your opponent's Vanguard power to 0 is honestly nice, because that means it's a lot harder for them to guard against your regular attacks, which will actually hit for decent numbers, and it also allows 0 to actually hit because your opponent's Vanguard power is now also 0. But interesting enough, it also activates when rode upon, so if you then follow it up with an actual grade 3 with bigger numbers, and that then maybe like a black that also can restand and whatnot, by turning your opponent's power to 0 can actually be an issue, because it is a lot of potential guard they're gonna lose, as effectively it's a passive plus 13k or 12k to all your attacks. And importantly, it also draws a card, so Counterblast 1, Soulblast 1 for a passive 12 to 13k power bump to all your attacks while also drawing a card is honestly a pretty decent amount of value you can generate. So this skill, not that bad if I'm gonna be honest. But then also it has another effect which is kind of spicy, because this allows you to actually go into this card and then secure the turn that you can ride up into something else, as it has the effect, although a Vanguard circle, once a turn, when this unit is attacked, discard a grade 3 from your hand and increase or decrease the attacking unit's critical to 0 until the end of that battle. Criticals become 0 at that time. Now, the reason why I say this is very spicy is because this effectively allows you to incorporate this card in any grade 3 specific heavy strategy like Dimension Robo or whatnot, because it's another grade 3, but also this as a first grade 3 right target actually could work, because you can lower your opponent's critical on the Vanguard or whatever to make it easier to guard against the attack. Yes, he has 0 base power, but if you can make this skill as a pseudo extra perfect guard, that's honestly not bad. And you can say, if you don't feel comfortable using this on the opponent's Vanguard because they could potentially hit criticals, you can still use this on a rear guard. It's not specified that it can only work against a Vanguard attack. So if you know your opponent's going to come with a gigantic rear guard but only 1 critical, this skill negates that attack entirely, which is awesome. The only thing you need to be aware of that the attack will still hit, so on-hit effects will still activate, but you won't take any damage. And it also this synergizes very nicely with the Hue Guardians, because if you went second, for example, you can use your Hue Guardians when you're still grade 2, then you can go into this thing and use its ability on that turn, and then follow it up with a potential powerful grade 3 turn 4 play when you go into the next grade 3 and using its ability to lower your opponent's Vanguard to minus power, which honestly, I don't know if it's gonna be good. Maybe not. Maybe it is. It looks very interesting, and I think this card is pretty nice and could actually have some potential. Now, moving on to the other clan, we've got Granblue cards with the Legion being reimagined, as well as Kakkai's Reverse. So let's first take a look at the other 2 cards before we're gonna talk about Kakkai's Reverse. So first off, we've got Discrete 2, which is Dragon Undead Ghoul Dragon. And Ghoul Dragon has the interesting effect of act from Bind Zone, cost Counterblast 1 and retire a rearguard. Choose up to 6 other normal units from your Bind Zone, return them to your deck, and shuffle it. If you return 4 or more cards, call this card to the rearguard circle. So This is interesting because this allows you to get a unit from the bind zone onto the field, but also shuffle a significant amount of cards from the bind zone back into your deck. Now, you might think to yourself, how does this work with Granblue? You're putting cards into your drop zone and not into your bind zone. Well, first off, this is nice for Granblue because it allows you to shuffle back cards into your deck, so deck out will be less of an issue, and you can put this card into your bind zone with the new grade 3. But beyond that, this could be a very nice tech card against Narukami or any other deck that binds a lot. Because now, when they do their game plan, they are fueling this card, and then you can use this card to negate their game plan, and then basically fill your deck with new cards, so deck out will also be less of an issue. This, honestly, is a very interesting card. You can go full on this strategy, or you can just run this grade 2 as a tech option, like a 1-er or 2-off, and then once you're up against those specific bind matchups, you can use this card to negate their game plan as well as establishing more space and playability for yourself. So that in itself, honestly, not a bad skill. But then, on top of that, it also has the effect on a rearguard circle. When this unit attacks a Vanguard, cost Soul Blast 1 and retire another rearguard, choose one of your opponent's rearguards and retire it. So it's effectively a 1-for-1 trade when you attack with this unit. Now, I don't know if it's going to be very good. In certain instances it is, in certain instances it doesn't. If you're using it with a card that already is going to retire it anyways, then it's fine, like with Hollow maybe. I don't really think it's going to work with Nitros all too great, because with Nitros it's already retired, so you don't really have the option. But overall, I think the first effect makes it a nice card as a tech choice, but we have to wait and see what type of impact this card will have. But to see what this card actually is supposed to do in its original game plan, let's take a look at the grade 3 that comes together with this grade 2. As we've got Witch Doctor of Dead Sea, Necrobolt. And Necrobolt has the following effects. Auto Vanguard Circle, at the start of your right phase or main phase, bind all the cards that are not trigger units from your drop. This effect is mandatory, so every time you start your right phase or main phase, you bind everything that isn't a trigger. So that then synergizes with Ghoul Dragon, because then Ghoul Dragon can go to the bind zone and use this effect from the bind zone to shuffle cards back into the deck and then go forward. So effectively what you're going on with here is that you're gonna do a super heavy mill strategy where you're gonna mill a lot of cards, then get the Ghoul Dragon into your drop zone, then with this effect you get it into the bind zone, use the effect to get it onto the board and shuffle back cards into the back into your deck. Interesting enough, because this card leaves all the trigger units in your deck, this has some incidental synergy with the other Legion pair with Pinot Noir, because that then powers up the board and because you have all those triggers in your drop. That might be an interesting mix match between those two strategies. I don't know if it's actually good, but it's an interesting thought to have nonetheless. But Necrobolt also has actual skills, because it also has the effect Auto Vanguard Circle. When this unit attacks, for every 10 cards in your drop, until the end of turn, this unit gets critical +1, and all of your front row units get power +20k. Now, this is a bit weird, and the reason why I say that is because it's effectively removing all the cards from your drop zone, because at the right phase or at the main phase, you bind all the cards that aren't triggered. So this is a bit tricky to get this effect off. However, in Premium it's a different story, because in Premium you can use the strike that allows you to rewrite a card from your drop zone, and because that's during the battle phase, you're not going to bind all the card immediately. Thus, the moment you write into this thing as the second attack, it will have potentially multiple criticals and a buttload of power. So that could be a direction you're going to take. Is that better than Nitros or Beatrice? I don't think it is, but it depends on the scenario of the game state. So honestly, might be an option. But beyond that, it also has another effect, which is continuous on Vanguard Circle. All of your units get shield +5k for every 10 cards in your drop. Again, more defensive options. In Premium, same scenario, you can ride it mid-battle phase, and then during the crackback of your opponent's turn, you'll probably have a sizable amount of shield to your disposal. In Standard, it all comes down to the triggers, because you need to have a certain surplus of triggers, but because there's only 16 triggers in your deck, that means it can only have an increase of 5k, not more than that, which is a bit weird because of the fact that the first ability is mandatory instead of the start of the right phase and the main phase. And as far as I'm aware, there isn't a way in Standard, I keep saying Standard, but I mean V Premium, to get this thing onto your Vanguard Circle without triggering its first effect. There is no superior right engine with Necrobolt as far as I'm aware. But overall, other than that, with the synergy with the grade 2, I think it's honestly not that bad. You basically have a bit more shield value, and you have a double critical unit that also powers your board a bit, so you can start hitting with bigger numbers. You're not really multi-attacking as far as I'm aware, but you have access to just some field retire, some ways to set up your board, and just swing with a lot of big numbers. Now, you could synergize this with, as I already explained, with Pinot Noir to have that multi-tech engine to start your plays to pressure your opponent, and then potentially go into this thing afterwards to maybe set up your deck with more cards so you don't deck out or something like that. That could be an option, but I don't know how solid that is. Overall, it's an interesting engine, but I don't know how good it's going to be. Now, of course, those aren't the only cards we got for Granblue, as we also got Cocytus Reverse, as we have Ice Prison, Hades Emperor, Cocytus, Cocytus Reverse. And this reverse unit has the following effect. Auto from drop. At the end of the battle, your Vanguard with Cocytus in its card name attacked a grade 3 or greater Vanguard. If it's the first battle of this turn, cause count them as 1 and discard 4 cards from your hand and lock all of your rear guards. Then, if you have 5 locked cards, write this card as stand. For each grade 3 card in your soul, choose one of your locked cards, unlock it, and this unit gets power plus 10k until the end of turn. So that's a lot of text on actually a very simple skill. How this effectively works is you have a Cocytus turn, the normal grade 3 Cocytus, but this could also work with itself, so you can also just write in Cocytus Reverse. You attack with your Vanguard that has the Cocytus name, basically. It has to be your first attack, so you cannot attack with your rear guards. Then after that attack is resolved, you can go into this thing, write it, lock your field entirely, and if you could retire, and if you could lock all rear guards, so you need to have a full board, and with Cocytus, the original one, that's not a hard thing to do, then you can write this thing by discarding 4 cards, which means in the end, you're going to -2 on your drive check value, because you have 4 drive checks, but you're going to discard all those 4 drive checks, essentially. Whereas usually you have 2 drive checks and you're going to keep those 2. That's a thing to keep in mind. You will have 2 Vanguard attacks. Now, the thing is, if you have multiple grade 3s in your soul, you can unlock those cards, which means you don't lose the value of the board you generate. You will always have at least 1 grade 3 in your soul, because that's the one you're going to ride upon. So you can unlock one of those and still have 1 attacks. Which means if you do that, in a generic sense, you will still have 3 attacks, because normally you would have Rearguard, Vanguard with Cocytus, but now you have Vanguard, Rearguard, or Vanguard, Vanguard, effectively. But if you have multiple grade 3s in your soul, you can unlock them all, and you also give your Vanguard multiple 10k pumps, so your second Vanguard swing could be for 22, 32, 42, 52, effectively. But it requires a lot of setup. And because you cannot multi-attack with your rearguards, because if you could attack with your rearguard first and then the Vanguard, that meant that you swing with your rearguards, attack with the Vanguard, lock your board, but unlock a couple of cards, and because they unlock, they go into standing position and you could have attacked with them again. Honestly, I wish they allowed you to attack with the rearguards first, because right now, because you're forced to do this awkward position of attacking pattern, Cocytus Reverse isn't all too great in the attacking value, in the offensive value. It's not that great. I feel like Nitros, Beatrice, and all the other cards, maybe even Pinot Noir and Necrobolt together or something like that, is probably more value as an aggressive engine than what Cocytus Reverse gives. Because it effectively is just, you're going to swing with 2 Vanguard attacks, you're not going to plus, you're going to lock yourself out of a lot of value, and then that's basically it. You get a rearguard attack, maybe 2, but that's about it. So, yeah. Not too great. Now, Cocytus Reverse also has another effect, which is Auto Vanguard Circle. When this unit is attacked, and this is an interesting aspect that I see keep popping up with most of the reverse units, they all have some type of defensive skill, which is interesting, but when it's attacked, cost retire 3 rearguards, and this unit gets power plus 10k until the end of the battle for every 10 cards in your drop. So this effectively could be like an extra perfect guard to some extent, depending on how many cards you have in your drop zone. And if we are going to combine it with the old Cocytus, with that Cocytus you want to have, I believe, 20 cards in your drop, so your Vanguard has plus 20k in a critical, so let's say you will have 20 cards in your drop zone at a very relatively consistent rate, especially with the new mill support that we've got over the course since the original Cocytus was revealed. Honestly, not too terrible, but also not too great. Like, the issue that I have still is in place here with Cocytus Reverse. what effectively are you doing? You have 2 Vanguard attacks and 1 rearguard attack, maybe another rearguard attack, but you're gonna lose all the value you have. Sure, the discard 4 fuels then the potential guard value of this, but because you need to retire 3 rearguards, you're also gonna lose the board, which means it's gonna be very hard to keep populating the board, because the issue is, because you go into this one, you need to write back into Kakkai to generate a board again. So I don't feel like it's all too great. Like, yes, it can be its own little deck because they synergize very nicely, because the old Kakkai builds a board and it allows you to draw a lot of cards because you have a sizable hand. And then this Kakkai Reverse uses that advantage to basically turn it into a little bit more aggression. Could work, but I feel like it's nowhere near on the same power level as we've seen with Beatrice and Nitros. Maybe I'm wrong and it could actually be something more, but I think this card isn't all too great. Which is kind of sad, because so far most reverse units are a bit disappointing. But maybe it will change around. Maybe I'm gonna eat my words that we're gonna see actually really good reversions, or some of these reversions were actually really solid. But we have to wait and see. But that's about everything that we got today. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think of these new clan collection reveals. What do you think about the new Granblue cards? Do you think the Necrobolt engine is very sweet? Or do you think Kakkai's Reverse is actually redeemable in some aspect? Or what do you think of the new Zero? Like, I haven't been a much fan of Vanguard Zero, but this Vanguard Zero looks actually pretty sweet. But now I want to know what your thought is about this card, so let me know in the comments down below. As always, this video has been brought to you by our Patreons over at patreon.com/VanguardInsider. You guys are amazing. If you do want to support the channel or everything that's happening on this channel, you can go to patreon.com/VanguardInsider and become a patron today. But with that said, I've been Mr. Time Leap, and I see you guys in the next one!